everyone, and welcome to the Animal Legal Defense Fund's Animal Law Academy. My name is Alyssa Sander, and I'm the Animal Law Program Fellow. I'm delighted that you're able to join us for National Justice for Animals Week. National Justice for Animals Week will take place February 20th through the 26th, 2022, and is an annual event dedicated to raising public awareness around crimes committed against animals. Each year's event features several different action items that can be taken. For this year's action items, please go to aldf.org/NJAW. In addition, resources and discussion guides for this webinar are available. We encourage you to use these questions to have a conversation as a chapter about the topics discussed here. To find those, please go to our website at aldf.org/webinars, click on today's webinar, and it should take you right to it. Joining me today is Managing Attorney Emily Lewis and Legislative Affairs Manager Brian Hackett. During this webinar, Emily and Brian will be discussing what defining justice means to the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Thank you for sharing your time and wisdom with us today, and I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for participating in this Defining Justice event. My name is Emily Lewis, and I'm the Managing Attorney for the Criminal Justice Program at the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Just a few housekeeping things before I really get started here. The views and opinions in this presentation are mine and don't necessarily reflect those of the Animal Legal Defense Fund or any clients. The information included in the presentation is not intended to be, nor should be relied on as legal advice. And I wanted to acknowledge the Oregon Humane Society for photos and case details that are referenced throughout this presentation. Today, I'm going to give a little bit of background about myself and then focus on the criminal justice program here at the Animal Legal Defense Fund, talking about this event in particular, the National Justice for Animals Week, how the criminal justice program approaches animal cruelty casework, and specifically about a new project we're launching this year. So first, to give you a little background about myself, I went to law school in Vermont in an effort to pursue a career dedicated to animal welfare. There, I found my passion for the criminal justice sector, and I pursued that to a position in the law enforcement department at the Oregon Humane Society here in Oregon for about 10 years. From there, I took my current position in the criminal justice program at the Animal Legal Defense Fund to take my experience with investigating and doing animal cruelty casework at the Oregon Humane Society and participating in the legislative process in Oregon in order to strengthen the laws here, to bring those skills to the national scale and help cases nationwide. I've also had the opportunity to co-author a textbook about investigating animal cruelty cases and teaching a course at the University of Florida for their veterinary forensic graduate certificate on animal crime scene processing. The criminal justice program at the Animal Legal Defense Fund works on animal cruelty cases with a number of different stakeholders who are on the ground at all different parts of the process or play a role in different aspects of the criminal case process, from law enforcement to judges to mental health workers to probation officers. We cover the spectrum because animal cruelty cases are complex. They involve a number of different disciplines in order to be successful, and they pose a whole host of unique challenges. They're financially burdensome. There is a lack of expertise across the board when it comes to responding to these cases and investigating them. And they present complicated, unique legal issues, not the least of which is because animals are considered property evidence, while at the same time being sentient living beings. In the course of our casework, we get the opportunity to interface with and assist a number of professionals in the field. And we'd like to take this week to really acknowledge some people who have stood out this past year. And this year, Samuel the Ram is the representative for that work that's been done on behalf of animals and these people who are doing that work. he puts a face to the outcome that these professionals are striving for. He was rescued with 50 or more additional animals of varying species who were living in neglectful conditions. And through the help of a grant from the Animal Legal Defense Fund and the hard work of the Center Valley Animal Rescue, Samuel has received treatment for his malnutrition and veterinary care for his overgrown horns, and now is comfortable in his new life at Center Valley Animal Rescue. Veterinarians are so crucial to successful animal cruelty investigations, and this year we wanted to acknowledge Dr. Susan Norris, an Illinois veterinarian from Southern Illinois, whose examinations and reports brought animal cruelty investigations to a whole new level in her jurisdiction, and in more than one occasion brought attention to domestic violence that was co-occurring in the home with the animal cruelty. Alyssa Rabulinski is a prosecutor in Illinois who demanded a comprehensive investigation into a kennel fire that uncovered not only foul play with respect to the fire, but mistreatment of the dogs even prior to the arson. Individuals working in the field of animal protection rely on strong laws to enforce in order to protect victim animals. And Stephanie Kendrick, who's the public policy advocate for the Hawaiian Humane Society, put together a comprehensive legislative campaign last year that helped pass 3 very important laws to protect animals. The first is a ban on animal sexual abuse. Hawaii was one of the few states that did not already have that on the books. Restrictions on dog tethering, and a bill that provided liability protection for veterinarians while requiring them to report suspected animal cruelty. We had the opportunity to work with these professionals last year and so many more who have dedicated themselves to protecting animals and seeking justice on their behalf. And our approach to this animal cruelty casework is to provide a multifaceted response to these cases because they are so unique. Every case has a different set of factors, different areas that need help or assistance from our program. And so we do provide training where that's necessary for a jurisdiction or a single entity or even a single individual. We provide assistance in the way of cost of care support and veterinary forensics and case consultation. We're working with our legislative affairs department on strengthening laws that protect animals. And when it comes to citation being the appropriate resolution in a case, we are assisting with prosecutor sentencing recommendation with an eye towards what's best for the victim animal. And one of the most important sentencing options from our view is possession bans, so that this victim animal is taken out of harm's way going forward. We also strongly support restitution in these cases that identify the financial burden taken on by the entities and individuals who are helping to respond to these cases. The focus is on the victim animals at every phase, but our multifaceted approach underscores that collaboration is necessary to respond to these cases. And that's the crux of our new program, which is called the Collaborative Response Project. But before I get into the details of that, I wanted to talk about what does a collaborative response mean in the context of these cases. Successful animal cruelty cases check all the boxes when it comes to utilizing a number of different experts together that can result in the most appropriate outcome or resolution of an investigation. For example, in a homicide case, a detective would rely on the medical examiner to identify and assess the evidence. They would rely on certified technicians to help process the crime scene and safeguard the evidence. And they would rely on prosecutors who have the expertise about how to present that in the courtroom. Animal cruelty investigations at their best follow this same pattern. They make use of experts like forensic veterinarians to identify and assess the evidence. They rely on animal care experts to help process the crime scene and maintain chain of custody for evidence animals. And then they rely on prosecutors who understand the nuances of these cases and are able to successfully represent what happened to an animal victim who cannot put words to their suffering or what they experienced on the stand. These entities contribute their expertise to effectively work through a case through to resolution. And I want to be clear that the majority of animal cruelty cases do not end in a criminal citation. In most cases, actually, they're resolved through the enforcement agencies acting as a community resource. They're providing animal owners with information about how to overcome the barriers they're experiencing that are preventing them from providing adequate care to their animals. They're educating them about what is required for the animals that they have, proper care and proper feeding and shelter, and what the law requires there. They're also able to bring community resources or connect people with the community resources that are available to them, like low-cost spay-neuter clinics, food banks, resources from the local humane society. There are cases, though, where those options are not appropriate and resolution may take the form of a criminal citation. Communities around the country are recognizing that animal cruelty cases are complex and time and resource intensive. And as such, they're forming community task force or animal cruelty task force to respond to these cases. When the experts collaborate these cases, they benefit from the training and experience that law enforcement agencies have in their knowledge of the laws in the states. The skills of the veterinarian in recognizing, treating, and reporting on the illnesses and injuries that the animals have sustained. The animal care entities who carry out the protective custody, as I mentioned, and the rehabilitation of the victim animals. And finally, the prosecutor whose job it is to compile and present the facts of the case in trial and the associated proceedings. The project that we are launching this year is to help solidify those partners in a specific jurisdiction. We want to create successful and sustainable partnerships between veterinarians, law enforcement, prosecutors, and animal care entities. We want to funnel intensive resources in the form of training and grant money and consultation into that jurisdiction to improve both the veterinary forensic response as well as the response of using education and monitoring and compliance as a tool to resolve these cases where criminal citation is not the appropriate response. So we're hopeful that next year, a number of our top animal defenders will come from cases in that jurisdiction that have found the best resolution for the victim animal and everyone involved in the case. I really thank you for your time today, and I look forward to meeting each of you out in the field helping animals. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Hackett, and I'm a Legislative Affairs Manager with the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Welcome today, and I'm here to speak about how we define justice in the context of advocating for animals in the lawmaking process. Why does ALDF work on legislation? Well, the mission of ALDF is to protect the lives of animals and advance their interests throughout the legal system. Why do we need to lobby and advocate for animals in this way? Well, there are several significant reasons. The first is we need to pass good laws that protect animals and advance their interests throughout the legal system. We need to stop bad laws that harm animals from taking effect or getting enough steam to affect animals with bad precedents in the lawmaking process. And finally, we need to ensure that the best interests of animals are a part of the discussion from start to finish throughout the legislative process with those elected officials who are elected on all levels of government to not only represent the interests of the people that are in their communities, but all of the animals, the millions of animals that are represented by those voters who are pet owners or who otherwise care deeply about those animals. Our system is based on the rule of law, and our legislative affairs team creates and executes legislative initiatives to pass laws around the country which involve key priority areas for ALDF, and we'll address those in the next slide. We could be engaged on all levels of government, from the local level to the county to the state capitals around the country, and in Congress, and on the federal level within the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. To provide an overview of some of the state legislation on which we've worked over the years, and namely in the last year, in 2021 alone, ALDF has had 36 wins year to date on key legislative items around the country. And it's important to keep in mind that ALDF has three buckets, so to speak, of areas where we work. One is animal status, elevating their status in the legal system. Another is wildlife, protecting and preserving the lives of wild animals, and exposing and addressing cruelty against farm animals, and working every day to reduce and stop the suffering faced by billions and billions of these animals on farm operations around the country. As mentioned, in 2021, there were a number of victories, 36 around the country. And to give you an idea of just a few of those victories, there were 5 local retail pet sales bans. There were 2 local fur sales bans. The state of New Jersey passed a law banning the sale of new cosmetics that had animal testing or ingredients tested on animals. New York passed a package of bills involving discrimination against families who own certain types of dogs. It also passed a law involving pet custody in divorce and separation proceedings, and another law requiring veterinary reporting of suspected animal cruelty and neglect. In addition, Illinois also passed a law about insurance companies discriminating based on breed. Texas passed restrictions on dog tethering. We worked to pass a cross-reporting of cruelty law in Florida. We worked to support post-conviction possession bans in Texas and Arizona. And proudly, the list goes on and on. ALDF leads or is a member of these coalition groups and efforts around the country in our states, and we'll cover later in our slides how our legislative affairs program handles and manages the various states around our country. But this gives a wonderful oversight into where we work and the successes that our team and our organization as a whole have had for animals in the legislative sphere. Next, we want to give some examples of some priority pieces of legislation that we've worked on around the country and that we continue to work on in 2022, as many legislative sessions are in full swing in state capitals around the country. One priority bill area for ALDF is what has been referred to already in the presentation as cross-reporting. And what this means in terms of justice for animals is that it allows a process that empowers certain agencies or employees of various entities for a fair process to account for concerns related to an animal's condition, and making sure there's communication between those agencies and between law enforcement so that animals can get the attention they deserve, and in some cases, protection from harm. Some states require, for example, simply veterinarians to report suspected animal abuse or cruelty to authorities. Not all reporting necessarily results in charges, but rather at the minimum, an outcome in which we're able to help an individual be grouped up with local organizations such as an animal shelter or a rescue or other charitable organization to get the help and resources they may need to properly care for their animals. Currently, there are cross-reporting laws pending in a number of states around the country, and our legislative affairs team will continue to work to advance these important laws to help bring justice for animals around the country. Additionally, we advocate strongly for programs known as courtroom animal advocate programs. And thus far, Connecticut and Maine have passed really great laws instituting courtroom animal advocate programs. How does this help effectuate justice for animals in the courtroom? Well, what the program means is a judge is permitted, at his or her discretion, to appoint a qualified advocate to speak to the animal's needs and conditions during a cruelty trial. It's important to keep in mind that these courtroom animal advocates do not have an obligation to the prosecution nor the defense. They're on neither side. They're on the side of the animal to ensure that the animal's voice and the animal's interests are accounted for and taken into consideration during cruelty trials. There are CAP bills pending in New York, New Jersey, and in several other places this year. And we look forward to continuing to work on CAP programs. Additionally, ALDF prioritizes what are known as cost of animal care laws. And these laws provide for a civil process to occur in which a defendant has an option to transfer legal ownership of their animals to an animal care agency during the course of a cruelty trial, or provide a reasonable amount of funds to pay for the institutional and veterinary costs for the animal or the animals that are held during the duration of the cruelty trial. These laws are very important in this regard because animals could often languish for months, maybe even years during a cruelty trial. Thus far, 35 states have some variation of cost of animal care laws. Some, of course, are better than others and may need some improvement. But for the remaining states that don't have any such law on the books, we're working to ensure that there is a fair process to account for these costs and these animals during cruelty trials. ALDF also supports what are known as post-conviction possession bans. As of 2021, only 17 states mandate possession bans after a conviction for animal cruelty. And several of those state statutes are limited to specific species or specific crimes. For example, just for sexual assault violations of an animal. 21 states, including Guam and Washington, D.C., statutorily authorize possession bans, but they're ultimately left up to the court's discretion. Some states have no possession ban stipulated at all, one way or the other. And we're working to continue to support these post-conviction possession bans. Part of ensuring that there is justice adequately served for animals throughout the process is making sure that certain individuals who have been charged with animal cruelty and convicted of those crimes are not in a position to possess those animals again for at least a specified period of time. Another critical issue that ALDF considers is mandating mental health counseling. 16 states as of 2021 authorized the court to order psychological evaluation for animal cruelty offenders. However, in almost 20 states, there are limits to mandatory counseling for certain abusers. For example, only juveniles are required to receive mental health counseling. But mandated mental health counseling for animal cruelty offenders is a vital component to helping get an individual the help they need, but also ensuring there is a fair and just outcome for animals involved in these various cases. To give you an overview of our legislative affairs team, now that you've been provided an overview of some of our priority issue areas, it is by no means limited to only those issues we covered today. We certainly work on a whole variety of other issues and bill topics, from puppy mills to cruel farm animal confinement to a whole number of other things, killing contest bills and cosmetic sales bans. We work across the board, but those were just an overview of some. This is our legislative affairs team, and you can get more information on our team on our website at www.aldf.org. We have Jennifer, we have Stephanie, myself, we have Alicia, Kathleen, and Kim. And this map covers, you can see a color-coded key of the states that each of us cover within our responsibility areas with our legislative outreach and work. Finally, I want to thank you all for tuning in today and hearing a little bit about our legislative affairs program work. For all of those on social media channels, please be sure to follow ALDF on those channels and invite your friends to like and follow as well. Part of advocacy for animals on the legislative front is spreading the word and raising awareness of these issues. Please feel free to email our legislative affairs program team. And if you'd like to learn more about our work, you can follow us on social media, email us, and check us out on our website at aldf.org. Thank you so much and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you, Emily and Brian, for spending time with us today, and thanks all of you for joining us. A friendly reminder that additional action items for National Justice for Animals Week can be found at aldf.org/NJAW, and discussion guides for this webinar can be found by going to aldf.org/webinars and clicking today's webinar. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.